Hi everyone, welcome to another Wolfram Language Design review about Tabular. And let's see where we're starting from.
So we were discussing missing, and there's a section there called SW notes. So that's a reminder of what we had done last week. So
Okay, by the
fundamentally,
way, I just want to comment that failsafe really wants to get into 12 for 14.1. And I think I don't know whether Christopher has stuff to do on that or who has
Well, I
stuff
think
to
I
do.
think we were gonna meet in some LCC meeting to talk about basically how it should handle options. That was
Ah,
my understanding.
so is that pending? Because I mean, it needs to be really wrapped up for 14.1. So
Yeah, I
is
mean, it's
there,
basically if the answer is it doesn't handle options, then it's totally wrapped, and I think it probably shouldn't handle options.
what
But
does
if
it
it should
mean to
handle
handle options? What does it mean to do that?
so okay, I mean, right. I mean, maybe we shouldn't have the whole discussion here, but basically, it's if you say fail safe is like a headdress. If you say fail safe of plot, not that you'd want to do that, of XYZ, that's effectively a way of running plot of XYZ, but if any of XYZ are missing or broken or whatever, it will fail more gracefully. So the question is, what if you say fail safe of plot of XYZ, comma, plot range goes to something rather? Should it inspect the plot range goes to something rather in some intelligent way? I would
We're not going to
argue,
get that in for this version. Let's get a version of failsafe that
yeah.
does not do that, and we can worry about it doing that later.
Okay, well, there already is a version that doesn't do that. So, yeah.
And remind me what it does. So failsafe, just if there's a message or something else that goes wrong, what does it return?
I don't think it detects messages, but it's basically, I mean, I guess maybe it could, but no, I mean, failsafe is basically about if any of the arguments are broken in some way, then it will propagate those broken results up.
So in other words, if there's a failure in one of the if the function to be plotted is a failure object, then it will propagate that. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, plot's not a good example. Better example, like the simplest thing would be something like failsafe of plus of one comma missing will return missing.
I see.
And in general, there are other arguments to the headdress for if you want to detect kind of more complicated cases.
Okay. Um, okay, so let's go back to what we were talking about before.
um,
Um,
s sorry, administrative thing. I don't think we have an LCC meeting next week, so um, I don't know how much discussion this
I think we
requires.
just I think we just finished it. I mean, I think we decided what we
Okay,
want to do there.
okay,
All right,
okay.
fine.
That's great. That's great.
Um, okay.
Yes. So the main proposal last week, and I think Carlo and Rob can explain better, was to separate the behavior for column-wise operations and element-wise operations with respect to missing handling, in the
Yes.
sense of being more permissive, like ignoring missing by default in column-wise operations, but not in element-wise operations. And then we had decided to have this function if missing that allows control on what to do if you find a missing in an operation that cannot or
I
should
think
not.
if missing is still a very tentative name because it's not really like if.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's go through this in a little bit more detail. So first point is the default behavior is that in a column-wise operation, a missing like object is ignored. Is that correct?
Yes, in aggregation
Yes.
operations, yes.
Yep.
So that means that in construct columns, for example, this is not needed. Is that correct?
Well, that's an example of an element-wise operation that goes row by row. Then the example below in tabular reduce would be an example in which min would ignore missings, but if we want not to ignore them, we would introduce if missing.
That's like a hyper-local version of replace missings, right? So that, depending on whether it's on the numerator or on the denominator, You select a different default, for example.
I understand. How does it do us any good to insert if missing if the missings are already gone?
No,
At the point where the go ahead.
okay, so this is slightly different than what you would get um, from just the normal propagation of missings, because basically if you divide hash A and hash B, you would get a missing result anytime either A or B is missing, and also anytime B is zero.
Yes.
Instead, this will give you a different result. Because if just B is missing, it will replace it with 1 instead of replacing the whole thing with missing.
I
So this
understand.
is
I'm asking, how do you get out of the default? If the default,
this is
let- let's-
this
go
is
ahead.
getting out of the default.
How? How does it work? Because if there's a column, presumably before we start doing anything on the column, we
No.
are deleting all the
No,
missing.
no, because
No.
the division is listable. And so before we even get to the dropping of the missings, we perform the operations on the two sides of divide element-wise. So it's the mean that is the column-wise operation. The other operations are performed row-wise because they thread, they list.
Okay, so let's go through this again. Okay, so are we proposing basically one function here, plus perhaps some options controlling row and column default behavior? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. So
Yes.
those options are in the global control section below. It's something like acts globally with something similar, not necessarily identical, but similar to failure action or missing behavior with some dollar defaults. And then locally, we control with if missing what to do.
Okay. So, okay, so the if missing thing, which is a bad name, as you say, what was the idea with test applied?
Test applied is just an old name for failsafe.
Okay. Okay, and what was this idea here, this not valid idea?
I think that was about if you right. So there was discussion of having like an option or something for tabular column so that you could tell it that, for example, maybe minus 99 in the inputted data should be interpreted as missing. So then the question is, if you index into that, if there's a minus 99 there, should it come back as minus 99 or should it come back as missing? Or it should come back as a minus 99 marked that it is a kind of missing like.
Yes.
The concept of missing may be a little bit misleading. It's more like invalid or
I
not
know,
valid.
which is why
Yeah.
that's why we're suggesting
Yeah.
not valid.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and this would be, let's see, this wrapper here wants to be something like valid. What the heck is it? It's not really right. I mean, it's kind of like it is expert unless it's the default, so to speak. If expert is not valid, then it's the default. I mean, maybe it's more like check valid. And then there's a wrapper not valid, which we can put around things, which is not the same as missing, but check valid would. I don't know whether valid is the right word for it, but you get what I'm saying. Check.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point? It's whether it's to be included or not. What is the real What is the real thing we're doing here?
Well, I would say the key separation is whether we want to ignore it as if it wasn't there, or we want to replace it with something else, or even propagate it.
Propagate it, yeah.
Well, so what does it mean to propagate it? I mean, to propagate it is just, do you want to wrap that expert in something?
Just leave it there. Even if we are going to get a 10 plus missing, 10 plus 3 missings.
Yeah. Um, okay, hold on. So what is it doing? Explain in one sentence what this thing is doing.
When you say this thing, can you at least point
This
out?
function, check valid or whatever it's called. It basically returns. I mean, if expa is invalid in some way, return default. Otherwise, return expa. Right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. And default can presumably be, I mean, I guess nothing, right? For the case that removes it.
Yes.
Or
Well, so check valid. What's that?
perhaps it could be even the value of another column or something like that.
Well, but okay, but hold on. If check valid of expa with one argument might be equivalent to check valid of expa comma nothing. I mean, I worry that check valid is such a generic name.
Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that check valid is the replacement for if missing?
Yes.
No, that won't work because it has to be varg. Look at the example with species, genus, family, and not available.
Yeah. That's a
It's
really
not
good example.
like this is a cascading operation where you try one thing, if that fails, try the next. If that fails, try the next. It's really way more useful that way.
Okay, fine. So that's not. I see. Okay, so okay, so let's. That was what I'm trying to get somebody to tell me.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I didn't understand what check valid was. I didn't
Well,
understand
okay,
because you put it
okay.
under
So
the
we need
header
a
of column.
name for this
Yeah.
function here.
Yeah.
Could be something like fall through or something.
That's better, but not quite right in my view. Let's see what else is.
Actually, also a quick question. The quote's not available. Is it? Are you imagining it would return the string not available or missing of not available?
Yeah, no, the string not available.
String. Yeah.
String.
That's
Okay,
all
then,
literal. That's all literal. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like you're building a description string, and you can't. Maybe you want to string join it with something. You can't string join it to missing, and so you're checking, trying to find things in various columns. And if you don't,
yeah.
then provide a default.
Mhm.
Or maybe
Yeah.
you're satisfied that family is never missing, so you don't need the last one. You put whatever you want there.
Yeah.
Fallback.
That's not a terrible name.
I don't think it's terrible. Yeah, fallback. This is not really right, but something like that. Well, so the idea for fallback would be that fallback keeps going in this list until it reaches something, until it either reaches the end of the list or it reaches something which is not a failure case. Correct?
Yes.
Is that correct, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, that's correct.
Falls back to later items, returns the first item, first of the experi that is not invalid, not a failure of some kind.
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't use invalid really, or failure. This is really more useful for missings. Like, if to me it feels that if there's a failure in there somewhere, then the whole thing should fail. Missing
Well,
as much.
no, but it's actually, I think Steven's thinking a little more generally, because, like, suppose you have a symbolic calculation and your first one is a good algorithm, but it's only very specific cases, so that would fail. So then you go to the second option, and so on. So I mean, there's probably needs to be some kind of a failure pattern or missing pattern, to decide. But this is actually, as a name fallback, it's actually it's a very general idea, and we can make it very efficient specifically for missing. But I kind of like the name in terms of the general concept.
So would we have any? Yeah, right.
Because we do that all the time in numerical stuff. If the Runge-Kutta method's not going to work because the equation's stiff, well, then we go to the next method, and so on and so forth.
I see. So then
I just worry about discoverability for people who come from data science kind of workflows.
Couldn't care less.
Sure, that's.
I mean,
when there's
it's
also
a different system. It's
also
what are they expected to be called? What do they expect it to be called?
Coalesce. Both SQL and pandas use coalesce.
Okay, it's a brilliant name.
I was talking more about, like,
should
they're
be on
gonna
the
search
garbage
for
dump.
something that says missing, not something that says failure.
Okay, that's a documentation tagging issue.
Yeah.
Fallback
but
is
also,
certainly
Carla,
much
you
more
had
indicative than coalesce.
Yeah.
No idea
So,
where
Carla,
they got
you
that.
had some special list behavior too. So if expr was a list, right, it did
Well,
something.
I think it, in light of the example with the tabular reduce above, I think that it's better if we keep it clean for now.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we should keep it clean and never, because I think this is a useful general construct.
Yep, I agree. Good.
Because, I mean, basically it means that you can just basically throw. I'm just wondering how that would work. You could, you can just say catch of expr1, and somewhere deep inside it you can throw a failure. I'm thinking about general uses of this.
Yep, that's exactly how you'd use it. I mean, I
But
wonder, maybe we should have a missing fallback as a special case just for missing. That could be done more efficiently, and that would satisfy Carlo's issue about the missing.
Well, I'm not sure, but
the question is really also what happens if all of them fail. I mean,
so we have to give us a failure object. I would assume if all of them fail, it gives a failure object.
Well, does it give a failure object, or does it give the last one? Like the example above where it's got the quotes. Oh, I guess quotes not available is available. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in terms of what it does in other languages, if they all are null, then it just gives null. So if translated to us, if they're all missing, it returns missing.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit like switch or which without a catch-all case.
Yeah, but look, okay, we got a couple of issues here. One is if there's anything special for missing. The other thing is what does fallback, there are other functions like confirm that has the analog of a failure pattern, right?
Well, there's confirm match, which just the second argument is a failure pattern, basically.
But what does confirm itself? Does it have an option, or does it just have a
No.
particular set of?
There's other if you want to specify the failure behavior, you use confirm by or confirm match.
I see.
I think we talked about a while ago, though. I mean, this is related. Is having a second argument for failure queue, where you would be able to specify, like, where we could have named classes of failure-like objects.
Yes.
So, I mean, you'd imagine that would be the value of this. That would be one thing you could put on the right-hand side of this would be,
Well, that's the current focus of their handling working group. So
okay, great.
there's a
Go
lot
ahead.
of work being done on registering classes of failures and so on. I think maybe Leonid can speak more to it if he wants to.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, if we want
Yeah.
to discuss it now, I can.
Let's not
describe
discuss
it,
it
but-
now. I just want to know the
Okay.
bottom line here, that is going to be some appropriate, that this thing here could be a fallback with a some kind of failure test.
Mhm.
Which seems more general than a failure pattern. I don't know. What do you think? Failure pattern, failure test? Maybe both of them.
I think if it's failure, it's neither. The point is, okay, the error handling working group is building some very specific things about, like, defining classes of failures, so that in general you wouldn't use neither patterns nor tests for failure. But if this thing by failure it means anything that is missing Q, then maybe it should be a test, and that test should be missing Q by default. That's what I kind of don't like about failure tests, is that at least in this context, you want that list of invalid things where failure is just one little thing. If it concentrates on failures, we have better tools for failures.
Well, wait. So would you want it to default to only doing missings, or to do all kinds of
No,
missings and dollar
right now
fails?
failure is missing Q, I think.
I think failure
Okay.
test is a good name if the default is failure Q. This reminds me of same test defaulting to same Q in general, but we
Yeah,
can
that's a good
use
point.
use equal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So let's just see. Failure queue of missing blah blah blah. Oh,
Yeah, you see,
well, that's no good.
Well, this is why we talked about. I mean, I think last time we talked about this a while ago, and the idea was that basically this is probably correct behavior, but that there should be a second argument for failure queue where you could tell it about a different class of failures that you care about.
Okay. But then what should this be? So I mean, the question is, there's an option. I assume there's no kind of headdressy type thing that says something like, test and then expo1. I assume that makes no sense. That would be a different design structure. I think it makes no sense.
But why not? It looks cleaner.
Well, but you
Because
now
then you-
always have to provide the test.
And presumably we want this to be hold rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold
Well,
Yeah,
all, I would say.
It's got to be
Just-
hold
well, but you're-
all. I mean, unless we put the test first. Yeah.
Well, no, but you're always going to evaluate the first one, right?
Presumably, yes. But look, I think we just need a name. Okay, this name is the same name that we're going to need for the thing that says not valid, for the wrapper that says not valid. See what I'm saying? It's a generic name for a thing that will be omitted. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's correct to conflate invalid with omitted. Like,
No. What we're trying to clarify is, for these purposes, what is the operational definition of the thing that we want to wrap the -99 with? Do you understand what I'm saying? What is operationally going on? I think it's that it's going to be dropped in various operations. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter whether there's a value judgment about whether it's valid or wonderful or not wonderful or shocking, or whatever. What matters operationally is it's going to be dropped. Is that a true statement or not?
yes, but I don't understand what is it you don't like about missing, which has the ability to wrap things. Like you can have missing with 2 arguments and put something in the second argument.
So you're proposing that the -99 gets wrapped with missing.
Yeah, and it can be missing, invalid, comma, -99 if you want.
Okay. So we don't need anything other than, so there's going to be an auto wrapping with missing. So what was the thing that we wanted to put in? That what's the thing that's the option for a column that says what the missing pattern is?
Missing value pattern.
Okay. So then that would be missing value pattern, and that would say -99. But then what does it do with the missing value pattern? Does it wrap it with missing, or what does it do?
Well, when it sees a -99, what it would do is it would, I think Carlos' suggestion is perfectly reasonable, is, you know, it would do missing some tag, which might be, you know, not valid or not parsed, and then comma -99. A little bit like that's a little bit like the key absent ones.
Yeah, okay, all right. So maybe what this needs to say is, I mean, I think it would be something like, you know, it might as well be very explicit, excluded by pattern or something. Something like that. There's no reason to not be quite explicit, so that if you see it.
Yeah, I'm fine. That's actually much better than, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then let's understand this. So then the missing value pattern applies to a column. Now, as we go through by default in a column, so I'm a little bit confused here because there's also a default missing value here. So is it also underscore missing? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I think you'd have to make an alternatives, or, you know, some pattern that catches everything you want.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay, so then those things get, well, okay, if that's the case, right, we could also have failure there. So in other words, there will be nothing. The only thing that would be treated as missing is a missing wrapper, because missing value pattern would even wrap a failure with a missing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So then that would become, you know, something like excluded by pattern failure, which I don't think is bad. I think then there's a single thing that we're dropping out, which is missings.
Mm-hmm. And missing itself
and
would stay the same, so that wouldn't be mapped by this, which is fine. I think that's great.
So wait a minute. So you're saying a missing value, that this is now irrelevant?
Well, no, it's detected, but it's not gonna map to something different than the missing that was given.
Fine,
right?
But the default would be, okay, but listen, if I say missing value pattern -99 and I omit the underscore missing, if there is a missing already there, it will just go through as a missing, which is correct.
Yeah, it won't get rewrapped, which is correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
But the other thing I wanted to say is, like, in the work we've done on entities, like, the missings are the things that appear in a given value, and the failures are when the whole thing goes completely crazy. So instead of returning a tabular, you return a failure.
I didn't know. Is that relevant to what we're talking about right now?
It's relevant. There is a section below about this, which is like when the failure is so catastrophic that you need to.
Okay, let's not deal with that right now. So then the question is, this could be called, for now, missing fallback, which is actually quite a nice, clear name, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have any any options for testing. It would just be, if it's got a missing, then fallback. Make sense?
Yep.
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 Okay. All right. What's next here?
I guess one question about listing fallback, and this relates to the discussion: is it listable or not?
I hope not. What does it have to be?
Well, suppose the first argument is a list with a bunch of missings or some missings.
I think that's a total mess. I mean, I think we should just not have it called in that case.
Yeah, but in some sense, if you look at the example above in tabular reduced, it is
that's how we're going to use it
there. It's super useful to have that. So maybe it's listable, but in a special sense. Like in general, whenever you have something like, imagine instead of having it missing and division, you could have mean of hash a plus 1. In that case, that plus is listable.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me understand what you're saying. So if you say it's 1 missing, comma 2.
Yeah.
And then
0, say.
What's that? Comma 0. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. And then that would turn into 102. Correct?
Right. Exactly. And so see, that's an easy way
useful
to change the behavior for mean. So the case, if you put nothing, then that's the default behavior we're talking about. But if you put 0, then it's including that element, but as a 0. So the divisor is different in mean.
But I think it can't be really listable. It has to be like threadable, because you could have a 3 list in any of the position of the arguments, right?
Okay, so hold on. Let's look at what this could do. So let's say we do this, and then the second argument. I mean, this could get really weird. It's 4, 5 missing. What the hell does that mean?
That means 1, 1, 5, 2.
Yeah, 1, 5, 2. Right.
Yeah, 1, 5, 2. So I
think
without an option, we can. I think actually listable is.
It's almost listable. Whether it's custom listability of some kind, probably.
I call it
because it should fail. It should fail if one list is like length 4.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But see,
that won't happen in tabular.
That's the beauty of listability, is it gives us the failure automatically. I mean, it's a generic failure then.
Right. Okay, so let's walk through this now. Okay, so then in an individual element, missing value pattern just says how to remap. So wait a minute, how do you do missing value pattern per column? I see. I assume what we do is that the option could be missing value pattern arrow association. Yes. Column 1 arrow blah blah blah. Column 2 arrow blah blah blah.
Well, actually, what is the convention right now? Because it seems like there are a lot of options like missing value pattern that ultimately should be an option for tabular column, but where you might want to provide them inside the full tabular. Is the convention just that you can write something like this and it will distribute it?
Yeah, well, for example, the column types is done that way. You write it as an association, it distributes it. Now, the tabular column, we can have that as an option. Yet right now, just to save myself huge time changing options and processing options, it uses. So basically, what tabular processing does, and it converts that into an association of directives, like So it has quote missing value pattern goes to blah, and then that's passed to the individual tabular column constructor. But it could be an option as well. It's just
So right now it wouldn't be. I mean, but ultimately, I mean, is there a reason why this wouldn't be also an option to tabular column?
no.
Or
I think it can be.
yeah.
Yeah, it can.
Okay.
Be.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So either global option to tabular or option to tabular column.
Right. Yep.
But this is something at construction time, right?
Yeah, and we might need, I don't know if Piotr's here or not, but he might comment on whether we need that at import time too.
I would think we do.
Yeah.
Right. So what I committed actually a few hours ago to the prototype build is that there is a missing value pattern for import of CSV files that accepts string, list of strings, or string expression or regular expression. So basically everything but string match Q works with.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good
but
to
this
me.
is global, not per column yet. But obviously I can do per column if needed.
Yeah, I think for CSV, it's probably global is going to be typically the thing one wants. Good. Okay, so let's just continue this review here and see if there's anything else we need for missing propagation, or is this basically what we need for right now?
Well, the one other question is and this sort of goes with the failure thing. So the example I brought up a while ago with, say, a list. So it's a list of strings, most of which are dates, and you want to convert those to dates. What do we call the missing we generate, when one of them is not a date?
Missing. Why isn't it just missing? Missing, something like missing not a date. I mean,
okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Comma, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but what if they're all not dates? Is that considered a separate case or not? Or do we let the user handle that?
I would just say missing not a date for every single one of them.
Fine.
Anybody see a problem with that?
No, I think it's fine. I think
Yeah.
entity value does that too. It has lists of all missings if needed.
Mhm.
It doesn't convert into a single missing.
Yeah,
Right.
and also I think that if you really want to put a constraint that results in a hard failure, it should be possible to do. But other than that, there are only two choices, either hard constraint or all things are being replaced by not a date or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
What is our convention for what the actual replacement is? What would be what are we calling it? Not date, or do we have any other or invalid date?
But Steven, wouldn't it be the case that there will be not just dates, so there might be a need for more general convention like not convertible or something that applies to other things where there is a mismatch of that kind?
Yeah, fine. But I mean,
like not like
I understand, but we need to have a convention for what all of them are going to be. If it's not a date, if it's not a number, whatever. What does it do in interpreter? Carlo, you certainly know this.
It returns a failure. Interpreter returns a failure if it can't parse.
But its tag is interpretation failure.
Yes. And if on the other hand you put something like that doesn't need to be interpreted, like you put a number 2.9, then it says restriction failure, I think. No, not it. I mean, you need to put a restriction and blah blah blah.
Okay, fine. But then what is our convention here?
Maybe conversion failure would be good.
Yeah.
As far as I know, entity value doesn't tag things with types. It tends to say directly not available or not applicable.
Yes, I agree. What about something like that? If the conversion failure is the main thing, then we could just say date conversion failure if we happen to know it's supposed to be a date. Does that make sense?
I wouldn't really specify specific types because
Okay, then let's not generally do that.
just conversion failure would be, I think, more useful.
Okay.
Yeah, if we really wanted to do that, we could have the second argument of missing be, an arrow with the to type and the from type. But I think that's getting more detailed than.
Well, I think we want
need
the
to be.
second argument to the missing to be what the actual payload was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, what else do we have to figure out in this section? This is looking good to me. Can we make sure we write it up with all the crud removed? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and now this thing about this dollar failure action, would we have a global missing value pattern? I don't know how necessary that is. A dollar missing value pattern? Do we need that, really? It seems wrong to me because it appears in lots of functions. I just don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. I think it would be a very easy way to shoot you in the foot.
Indeed.
Yeah, it should
Let's
at the
not do it.
very least be a local option, not a global setting.
Okay, so it is a local option. Missing value pattern is a local option to tabular and to tabular and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good. Okay. All right, let's continue to the next section. Are we ready to go to the next section?
Well, that section was a bit of let's study the precedents that we have.
Wait, there is another thing we need to talk about in this section,
Okay,
which
then
is
please let's talk about
okay.
it. Okay.
So the question is like, so I'll tell you what we do in entities. So for example, if we have something like a local 1/0 that is value dependent, there's no need to fail the whole operation. You just put a missing in the place where that division failed. But there are situations where you know straight away that you're trying to do like an addition between a string column and a numeric column. And in that case, we usually fail spectacularly and return a failure because we just can't compile the query. And so the question is, do we want to have some kind of way to interpolate between those two behaviors and figure out like, and this ties in also the question about like the fallback evaluation. Maybe you want to stay into some strict mode where you never try to fall back into slow evaluation and use just the kernel. And so maybe you want to turn on some kind of pedantic flag that everything fails unless it's fast.
Then that would be a global option to tabular, presumably.
Yeah. So the question is like, how do you modulate what do you want to fail? Like if you want to construct a column full of missings whenever you can compile and go on, or you want to build a big failure object.
Well,
and
that's presumably a failure action thing, right?
But failure action.
Yes.
Yes and no. I mean, an
more-
example is suppose you have a column of a bunch of reals and you do the exponential function on them. Do you want to fall back to big nums or generate missings, for example?
I don't think we know yet. Okay.
Yeah.
And I recommend that what we do is if we have a bunch of cases that we allow in tabular a failure action, which can be a some complicated association which has a bunch of these cases. That's what I recommend.
Failure action being an association where you say like, this falls back to normal evaluation, fail. This is an error of one value, put a missing. This is
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like because
column operation, column incompatible columns, let's say, or whatever. I don't know, incompatible columns. And that would be failure object or something. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying parameterize it in a way because I don't think we really know what this is going to look like. And I think we should put in a bunch of different cases that we think of and just stack them all up in an association.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then later on we might clean it once we know what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's keep going, please. I think we've got to get to pivots and things like this, but what about value cleaning? What's this? Is this what we already talked about?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was yeah.
Okay.
And
Select
this
columns based on meta information.
yes, Carlo.
Yeah, so I think, you know, if we have a rich schema, I think it would be useful to have this kind of stuff. And we were talking about this with Rob because Rob had some, like, he kind of faked this by saying, like,
What is this for? I don't understand what this is for.
okay, let's say you have 100 columns.
Yep.
And you know, you probably don't care about all of them. You want to start exploring what's in there, and you say, oh well, let's see all of those that, you know, don't support missings, or all those who have a certain name or a certain type.
What is the
How
thing
would-
for wait a minute, column? What's the name for? I just want to construct. I just want to get certain columns. How do you do that?
Oh, you
Well,
do
you can
tabular of all comma column
Cons-
name.
You use part.
You
Well,
can
you-
use part as well, right?
yeah,
Or
you can use part, and you can use also column construct. Column construct
that's what I was
with
looking for,
strings
column
with select.
construct.
Yeah.
I thought it was construct columns.
Oh, yeah, construct columns.
Okay, and then I have column 1, column 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. But so what I was
Okay.
saying is that in some previous version, Rob was compiling things like all true integer q.
What is this for? Are you talking about you're manipulating the list of columns in some way, or what are you talking about?
No, I'm manipulating the list of names of columns.
here's a concrete
How
example.
do I extract the list of names of columns?
Like I think tab of
column keys?
column keys.
Yeah, there's a function column keys.
But there's also a string sub value, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the column keys and I want to extract certain columns. So I say column keys, I do my selections and I feed it into construct columns.
Yeah. But
Right,
the point is that you know, the right way to do that would be a select. Well, I'm missing a keys there. You do a select on the schema, not on the data itself.
I know, but so why
Yeah.
are we not just doing construct columns of tabular, comma, select of column keys, blah, blah, blah?
Because I mean, select of column keys only operates on the strings, cannot operate on anything else. So
What
you
else
can
would you like it to operate on?
the type, on
the type.
or you know, things like whether this is a column key, whether, you know, it has a certain default value.
No, it's a
whether-
column key. You just extract it as a column key.
Yeah, but
No,
here's
no,
a here's
column-
a concrete.
column-
Can I give a concrete
column,
example?
Okay, but actually, can I understand if this is this is metadata for tabular column, correct? You're talking about the metadata for tabular column,
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, this is
Oh,
really
no,
instead of-
wait, sorry, no.
yes.
It's not metadata about the tabular column, it's about metadata about the whole tabular. Because things like key columns are not properties of the column, are properties of the tabular.
Okay, Rob, why don't you give your example?
Yeah, my example is okay, and this is so suppose you have a big table with 50 columns or something, and you want to take the mean of the columns that are numerical or floating point. Okay, so you want some easy way to select which columns you want to take the mean of, so you can construct the functions for those.
Yes.
That's I think that's pretty concrete.
Where is
with what
that
we mean.
data?
That's stored in the type. The name of the column is stored in the tabular, but the actual type is stored in the tabular column.
Okay, well, what's the minimal code to extract this?
Should be, is it like schema, like the way I typed it?
I don't know,
Yeah,
but
well-
what's the minimal code? If you're just doing it without any special functions to do it, how do
Yeah,
you
it should be-
extract
You
this
would do
I
a
data?
think
tabular column of quote column types.
No, wait, it's not of tabular. It's
No, not tabular column. I mean tabular of quote column types, and that gives an association with the type, the
Okay, so
name,
this
and
will
the
be
type.
column types here.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so then we have it. Let's move on. Let's try and make some progress onto some other things. This seems to me like not something we need a special function for.
Okay.
Understanding what's going to happen is it's complicated enough without having an additional function that you have to learn.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't see it. Okay, let's talk about pivoting here for a minute.
Well, we're not. Yeah,
Are we not ready for this?
we're not really ready for the pivoting stuff. I mean, if you want to look at the ref pages, I think there are examples there that you could look at.
Okay, but I'm just trying to get a sense, a roadmap here of the full set of things we still have to review for Tabular.
Well, one big part that we haven't started yet, but we'll probably be able to start soonish. So, I mean, the last build failed, so I couldn't prepare anything with it. But Rob started putting in the hooks for us to plug in directly into the same symbol, the out of core stuff. So we'll have to review some of the out of core stuff because there are
Good.
some decisions to be made about like what is the constructor, what the full form looks like, how eager or lazy do we want to be with errors? Like, do we want to have the compilation errors right away, or do we want to wait until the person says,
Yeah, okay.
but
There's no need to ask the questions right now. I mean,
Yeah.
right. We
So
understand.
there
There's
is
things
some
to
review
discuss
of
there.
that. Then pivoting, well, we have to remember that this is like some sort of a smaller version of pivoting. It's not the full labeled array thing. So we need to decide what is useful here, what to keep.
Yep.
Before having like a more full-fledged object that supports
Yes.
more cooler stuff.
Okay. And what else? I mean, we'd looked at a bunch of visualization things. Have we finished that review?
No, I don't think so. So the best thing, there is a guide page called Tabular Processing New. I think that has the project sections.
But now, let's see. Who is project managing here?
Me.
Oh.
Me, Carla, over here.
Okay, good. So can you make sure that you have for the next meeting a checklist of all the areas that we are supposed to be reviewing for Tabular and their status?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that depends on, people getting back to her.
Well, that's her job, is to get people to get back to her.
Yeah, but, Roger.
And I think there is another thing.
Is this the correct spelling? Is that the correct spelling?
No. Lowercase EU, EW.
I mean, Sean is not here now, but I think
it's it's a featureized ref page.
I know. I went to this. Oh no, it's a function.
It's a guide page.
Yeah.
Guide page. Sorry. Yes.
So, if I recall correctly, the decisions we have made about the what's it called, the object data connection object was also predicated on the fact that we were going to put this in version 1. So maybe we should revisit some of those decisions now that we have more time.
Yes. So I think this is the fundamental picture with the areas. And so we have been focusing mostly on the object and cleaning and transformation.
Okay. So we're going to look at visualization and we got to look at modeling.
And of course, there's typesetting.
Yes.
Indeed. And what's the status of that?
Let's see. So Jason Abernathy has been working on that, and we have been working on special processing of individual types of columns, particularly numbers, dates, quantities.
Yeah.
It's got to be strictly better than data set.
Yes, I think it's already better because it aligns numbers, it takes precisions into account, this sort of thing.
Okay, and then we'll need to reverse, we'll need to port that back into dataset.
Okay.
Okay. What is publish? What is that?
I don't know. I think this is the last section. This is Rogers, and he was thinking probably on how to, I don't know, make web pages out of tabulars or things like that.
Well, that would probably be type. But go ahead.
Well, you can click on it and we can see if there's if there's something there to look at. Can you increase the magnification? I can't read that.
Yeah, this is pretty aspirational.
Gosh.
This is not the right way to do this. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Oh,
Right,
by
to
the
be
way,
discussed.
in terms of transformation, before I forget, do you ever want to discuss window functions? Not necessarily just within Tabular, but also within, I don't know, ILD?
You mean things that like map with a windowing function?
Yes.
We can discuss it along with supplied.
We can discuss it along with supplied.
I think it's a reasonable
Well,
thing to discuss, but we need to discuss supplied as
Yeah.
well.
if you open this topic, then I have to say that for the transformation language, we didn't there are a lot more things that we haven't been discussing at all so far. Like, for example, for databases, we used subqueries, which make the language much more powerful. And there are many, many other things like relations, etc. We didn't mention those because they are more advanced, but they're very powerful.
Yeah. And
I mean,
possibly very incomprehensible.
We'll show you when we get there.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced about windowing. I am fairly convinced about supplied.
Well, the thing about windowing is that it's a little bit difficult to explain to people, but at least internally, once you grok it, you can write all the things like accumulate, etc. in terms of that.
Yeah,
everything is a
whatever.
sub case of that.
Yeah,
You know what? For windowing, I might have some way to express it in primitives, because I did some experiments on that, to express those in primitives, which will be much more understandable for Wolfram language users.
Okay, but there are things about what happens at the end of the list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of hair.
Well, we already have, remember, we already have a thing. I think it's called partition map. I can't remember if it had a name change. Maybe it had a name change somewhere that sort of does a multi-D version of a moving type
Block
window.
map. It's called block map.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, but the problem is that kind of thing is difficult to use within transform columns. Even accumulate is something that doesn't quite fit.
I agree. It's a different,
-1 things. So
yeah, no, it is different, but we do have something, to look at and compare to.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else we really need to cover today?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, we're making progress, but we need to keep pushing because, this is right after the summer. We need to be wrapping this up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks a lot. See you all soon.